Welcome to the Saydel ACT Prep. The goal of this is to give you some tips on how to increase your ACT score and maybe just give you a glimpse of what the ACT is going to look like if this is your first time taking it. What a lot of people don't understand is that the ACT is really easier. It's easier to change your ACT than your GPA. By the time you get to be a junior or senior in high school, there are so many credits that are built up from previous years that your GPA becomes very, very difficult to move at all by the time you're getting into those upper grades. However, with the ACT, you can take it and really bump yourself up a couple points, which might be the difference between getting into or not getting into the school of your choice, or even changing the financial aid package that you are receiving from the school you choose to go to. A higher ACT score really might end up resulting in several $1,000s a year towards your room and board or tuition. So I wanted to introduce you to a few strategies. There are three major strategies that are going to help you not just on the ACT but on all standardized tests. And the first one is to read the question. Answer the question that they are actually asking, because a lot of these companies, these test designing companies, they have these tricks. And one of those tricks is to provide questions that have multiple answers, but then the answers may not really fit with the question that was asked. That the answers that are provided are true, but they are not really answering the question. So, for example, what is the purpose of polar bear's fur? Okay, just to provide an overly simple example, and maybe one of the answers is that polar bear's fur is white. Well, that's true. However, that is not the question that was being asked. It was not what color is polar bear's fur, but what is the purpose of their fur. So make sure that you check those questions and that you are providing answers that match up with those questions. All right, second, if you need to guess, try to eliminate some of those answers. Even if you eliminate one answer on a 4-question test, or in this case, a five answer test, eliminating one answer takes you from a 20% chance and jumps you up to a 25% chance of getting the correct answer. If you can eliminate 2, that's going to move you from a 25% chance to a 33% chance. So you're going to increase your odds of, even if you have to guess, making sure that you're ruling some out. I know this seems sort of obvious, but glance through some of those answers, and some of them are really obviously wrong answers. And the last thing that you really need to focus on is pacing yourself. Okay, a lot of people get caught up on the reading, and that is something that a lot of people struggle with. So pace yourself, see how long it takes, and the best way to do that is just practice. We'll be having a practice ACT here at Saydel High School, where you can come in and we'll run an ACT just the same way that the ACT is going to be run when you actually take it, but just practicing is going to help you out a lot. All right, so the ACT is really designed to rush students. You're going to get a better score if you answer 75% of the questions carefully rather than answering all of the questions very, very quickly. So go through and try to find which questions are you very confident about, and leave the questions that are either going to take too much time or that you're not quite as confident about. Skip the questions that you don't know and come back to them if you have time. And remember that on the ACT, they only count the correct answers. So even if you get something wrong, you're not punished for that. So whether you leave it blank or you actually answered it and got it wrong, on this particular test, you're not going to be punished for it. So on this slide, what I'm showing you is the amount of time that is provided for each section. So there are 4 sections: English, math, reading, and science. And then if you want, there is an optional writing section. But for the 4 major sections, just averaging, you have 45, 60, 35, and 35 minutes, respectively, for each section in English, math, reading, and science. Well, that averages out to be about 30 seconds per question for English. For math, about 50 seconds per question if you are including transition time between questions. Reading, 7.5 minutes per passage. However, those passages are relatively long. You're talking 700 to 800 words, which is a fairly lengthy piece of reading. And then science, about 4.5 minutes per passage, excuse me. And again, there's a lot of information there, and so breaking that down and looking at those questions, it can be pressing. So check to make sure that you're on track and that you are seeing how quickly the time goes, because that is really the purpose. They are trying to rush you so you don't have as much time. They want to see how you react under pressure. So, for example, here's a math problem. And this is a way that you can try to help improve your math score that narrow down some of the answers. If you notice here, all of the answers are in numerical order. So A is the lowest number, E is the highest number. And so you can just pick one and start plugging it in. Now, this is a fairly easy equation. And if you have some good math knowledge, then it would make sense that you could look at this and see which question really is going to be beneficial for you. However, if you don't know what they are, you can start plugging them in and just try to see, does it equal 0? So if you're not sure which question it is and you want to plug in 18, take 18, square it, subtract 49 times 18 and see if it equals 0. If not, then you can try another one, and if you realize that it's not the right number in this case, if it ends up being a much smaller number, then you're going to want to move up. Maybe you want to try 32 and plug that in. But then by the time you get to 49, then you'll realize that is the right answer. It's going to equal 0. But you can just trial and error. Plug it in, try it out if you're not sure. But again, do the questions that you know how to do first. Save the ones that you don't know how to do until later. If that means writing in your test booklet, that's fine. Put a little mark next to it. Say, all right, I want to come back to this one, or maybe cross it out and say, all right, I had no idea about this one. Find some way to sort of go through and determine whether you know or have an idea about the problem, and then be able to come back to those. Again, it all comes down to practice. Here's another question, and this is a little bit more lengthy, and so when we give you that 50-second time period, some questions are going to take a lot longer than others. So in this one, of the 736 graduating seniors at Rockford University, approximately 1/4 are going to medical school, and approximately 2/3 of those going to medical school are going to a domestic medical school. Which of the following is the closest estimate for how many of the graduating seniors are going to a domestic medical school? Well, right away you can look at that. If you have 736 seniors at the school and 1/4 of them are going to medical school, are there a couple answers that you can automatically remove from the possibilities? I would probably look down here to E, so starting at the largest number, 500. 500 is over half of 736, so we can automatically discard E and say that is not what we're going to use. Okay, so next one down, 320, that is also obviously wrong, because 320 is a little bit less than half, but not quite to the 1/4 range. So we can really throw out E and D pretty easily. So at this point, even if you don't know how to solve the problem, you've at least narrowed it down from 5 answers to 3. So you've gone from a 20% chance of getting it right to a 33% chance of getting it right. Okay, so you've significantly increased your chances. Now in this one, fairly easy to look at. So if you take 736 and you multiply it by your two fractions, so 1/4 times 2/3, and then you multiply that by 736, actually gives you about 122. So A would be your best answer because it does ask for an estimate. So again, even though you don't come up with the exact number in there, look at what they're asking. The question that's being asked is an estimate. 120 is the best estimate. All right, on English, one of the things that you can try to do is they oftentimes try to trick you by using sentences out of context. read the sentence before and the sentence after a particular area. So if they are asking about number 6, today Luigi's battery is fully charged. I know I can go all the way to the end of the trail and back. Sometimes they'll just throw in a random sentence that doesn't seem to make any sense. And that's not necessarily what's going on here. It's all related to this student's motorized wheelchair and going out on the trails and having a backup cell phone battery, or I'm sorry, having a backup cell phone in case he gets stuck or whatnot. But read through that and see what's going on, because they'll very often give you a sentence that is out of context. Secondly, on some of these, listen and just figure out what sounds right. Okay, what really, as you read through it, does it sound right as you say it? So try to say it in your head and just see, does it sound right? Does it sound awkward? If it sounds awkward, you've been speaking this language your entire life. You know what sounds right and what doesn't, and so trust your gut. Know that if it sounds wrong, it's probably wrong. So just go with your gut. Now, with the reading section, ends up being a little bit different because, like I referenced earlier, these are fairly long. There's 700 to 800 words, and there's 4 of them. So you really need to probably narrow it down. And a lot of these questions focus on details. So out of your 4 readings, I probably wouldn't just start with number 1. I'd probably just maybe glance at the title or maybe look through quickly. Again, time is essential. Look through and maybe find a couple passages that you are more interested in. Because again, if you answer 3 of the passages, if you focus on 3 of the passages and do really, really well on 3 of the passages, you're going to get a better score than if you really try to do all 4 passages really quickly. So try to focus on a few. If you get to all 4, great. But really try to focus on those 3 and find some passages that you are interested in, because you're going to be better able to recall those details. Because they are looking for details, don't skim it. You're going to end up going back and trying to read it over again, and you're going to end up wasting more time. So read it thoroughly, the first time, so that you are really understanding what is in that reading. Now, once you get in, you'll probably see this, but there are questions that are line reference questions. So the reading is numbered, and they'll say, in line number 62, what is meant by this? Don't do those first. Answer the questions that are not line reference questions first, because you can usually answer those pretty quickly. They're typically main idea type concepts, or maybe identifying a theme. They're not specific to a certain line. They take less time. Once you answer all the questions that are not line reference questions, go back and answer those other ones. Then you can move on to another section that you find interesting, another passage that you find interesting, and do the exact same thing. Go through, read it thoroughly, because answering those questions well is going to be better than trying to answer all the questions very, very quickly. All right, the last section on here is science. There are usually 3 different types of science questions. One that focuses on just charts and graphs. Some that have an actual experiment is probably still going to include data tables, charts, and graphs. And the third type of question is fighting scientists. So you end up with a lot of information, and you try to identify controls and really analyze their argument. Now, the first 2 are very, very common, the charts and graphs and the experiment types of questions. And try to focus on those, because in general, you can answer about 80% of the questions in the science section completely off of the charts and graphs. Now, that is usually. Doing all that reading is a waste of time. Okay, and I know that seems contradictory, that we're always telling you to read the directions and read through. Because this is a time test and they're trying to pressure you on time, don't read the passages unless you really need to. And again, try to focus on some that you feel more comfortable with. Maybe there's a content that you're more comfortable with. Focus on that. But really go straight to the tables, charts, and graphs and answer those questions first. And I'll provide an example right here. So at the top, it says the following table represents the concentration of ions and dissolved gases in the sediment at the bottom of an ocean. A depth of 0 centimeters represents the top of the sediment. The concentrations are expressed in parts per million. The acidity of a solution is represented on a scale known as pH. A pH of 1 is very acidic, a pH of 7 is neutral, and a pH of 14 is very basic. So all that reading that I just did took some significant time, and some of the passages are going to be longer than that. When really what I'm looking for is this table right here. This table has all of the information that I need. And it's very, very common for them to look for a couple different types of questions. So right beneath the table, I asked one particular question just because I'm trying to save room. I didn't provide possible answers, but if the trends continue, one would predict the pH of the sediments at a depth of 25 centimeters to be. What they're doing here is trying to have you identify a trend. Okay, identify a pattern. Okay, so depth 0, 5, 10, 15, 20. The depth is increasing by 5 centimeters each time. So the next logical step would be at 25 centimeters. Now, if I come over here to pH, at 0 centimeters, the pH is 7. But each 5 centimeters that I go down, my pH drops a half a number. So identifying that trend at 25 centimeters, I would expect that the pH would be 4.5. You're just using the table here. None of the reading at the top really helps me answer that question because all I'm looking at is the depth versus the pH, which is exactly what the question was asking me. So it's pH, I have depth here, and so that's really what I want to focus on. Okay, the second question there, another very typical type of question using the same data table, and that will happen that you will have multiple questions off of the same data table. The concentration of which of the following gases is constant for depths of 10 centimeters or more? So if we come back to the table, 10 centimeters or more, well, the gases are over here, different concentrations are over here. And so what is constant for 10 centimeters or more, so more would be below that. So looking at it, all right, 3.5, 3. That's not constant. 3.5, no, that's not constant either. That's not. Oh, O2. O2 is the only one that is constant. So just by using this table, I was able to answer that question. Okay, so try not to focus on the passages, on the readings themselves. Use those charts and graphs. It's probably the best piece of advice for the science section I can give you. All right, wrapping it up here. Triple P with A. All right, practice, practice, practice. Take numerous practice tests. So we are providing a practice ACT exam, so you should be able to kind of experience that. Because it's in a controlled setting, that's probably the best opportunity for you to practice taking the ACT. However, if you go to the ACT website, they have practice ACTs there that you can take. You can actually print off a booklet and take some of these and just time yourself. Go take a day where nobody's going to bother you. Go in the morning and just sit down and practice your pacing. See how long it takes you to do that, and then you can help revise your success. Research has shown that doing this practice, taking these practice tests, increases your confidence, so you feel better about taking the test, and it lowers your test anxiety. If you're more confident and you have lower test anxiety, then you're probably going to get a better score on the test because you're not freaking out about the time. Right beneath that, increased endurance, speed, and accuracy. Okay, just like in any sport, you want to go out there and you practice. If you are not doing great at free throws, you're going to get out there and practice your free throws. It's no different with taking a test. If you realize that there's a certain area, maybe pacing is something that you struggle with. So go out there, practice your pacing. Okay, stagger practice. Okay, practicing is great, but if you just do it the once or you just try it out the night before the test, it's not going to be successful. I'm going to make another sports analogy. If you just went out and you practiced just the 2 nights before the big game and you didn't practice at any other point in the season, you're probably not going to be successful. Spread it out so that you are ready. Okay, you want these skills to be habits, not just something that you did a couple times. Okay, and again, I know I sound like a broken record, but practice your timing, your pacing. That is probably the biggest struggle for most students, is that you get through it and there's a lot of questions, and you end up not realizing how many questions there are and how quickly it goes by, and that you're not going to get done. So time yourself. Okay, just set a little timer, take your phone, set a timer, and I have the amount of time that is on each section. If you go to the ACT website, and they will provide those for you as well. Time yourself, just see how long it takes. Figure out if you're spending too much time on one passage. If you are spending, you know, 12 of your 35 minutes on one passage, maybe you need to figure a different passage to go on to. Maybe there's a certain type of passage that you don't do well on. Okay, and then the last part is doing all of this is fine, but if you don't analyze it, you're not going to know where you're being successful and where you are not being successful. So take a look and see, what parts have I done well on, what parts have I not done well on, and then more than that, why have you not done well on those? Okay? Use us as resources. All the teachers here at Saydel High School want you to be successful. Um, have us help you out. If you need us to help you on timing, ask us. We want you to be successful. If you're having trouble analyzing those, let us know. We will help you analyze those tests. So that's probably one of the biggest things, is that practicing is great, but if you just keep practicing in that incorrect way, you're not going to get any better. So analyze what you're not doing well, so that you can improve on those. That being said, best of luck to you. I hope that you do very, very well on your ACTs. And if there's anything else that we can do for you, please let us know. Please watch guidance for